Pan-Africanism Forum. This is our third forum for 2012, and we thank those of you who are here with us today. We also thank those of you who have participated in forums previously. My name is Njiba, and I am a member of the organizing group for the Revival of Pan-Africanism Forum, as well as a member of the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Today, we've come out to speak a little bit about the Eurozone crisis, the global recession, and the future of the CFA zone. We have two wonderful speakers that are going to enlighten us and take us really through a conversation about the CFA zone, the Euro crisis, and really what this has to do with Pan-Africanism and ourselves as African people, whether we were born on the African continent, in an Anglophone Africa, Lusophone Africa, whether we were born in the African diaspora. What does the CFA zone have to do with us? And we understand that Pan-Africanism, which we can identify as the liberation and unification of Africa, is something that will positively benefit every African person, regardless as to where you are born. So I want to briefly run through the agenda today so we're all clear of what we'll be doing. Right now, we're doing a quick welcome and introduction. We will then move to have the African national anthem, which we will have by our sister Anna Malago. From there, we will listen to a couple of Pan-African organizations that are doing work in the community. And it's important for us all to be in organizations, but more importantly for us to celebrate those who are sacrificing their time and their lives in order to build this thing called Pan-Africanism. We will then move on to have our guests speak about the Euro crisis zone, the global recession, as well as the future of the CFA zone, and that connection to Pan-Africanism. We'll close out that section with a very brief poem by Sister Anna again, and then we'll open it up for question and answers. And during that time, there really will be a dialogue between the audience and the panelists to really talk about the critical information that we have, but also what's the way forward. This is great information. How can we utilize it to improve the lives of African people? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sister Anna Malago, who is going to take us through the African National Anthem, and she's going to give us a little bit of revolutionary culture that's going to show us that we cannot just use intellect in order to achieve Pan-Africanism, but Pan-Africanism must be achieved through various different elements. That's culture, that's politics, that's economics. Sister Anna.
Wow, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I always like to start by asking everybody, is everybody feeling good? Because if you're not feeling good, then you shouldn't be here. Because you know today, God gave you an opportunity to see another day. So I hope you're feeling good. So is everybody feeling good?
Yes.
I'm not even kidding. Is everybody feeling good?
Yes.
So I would like for all of us to stand so we can sing the African National Anthem. Oh, sisi geleli Afrika, malupakanyisu pandazwayo, yizwa imitandazo Yesu, kosi sikelela, zina lusafolwayo, woza moya, woza moya, woza moya, woza moya, woza moya, oh si gewele, kosi sigelela, tina lusapolwayo, Mungu ibariki Afrika, wabariki viongozi wake, hekima, umoja na amani. Hizi ni ngao zetu Afrika na watoto wake. Ibariki Afrika, ibariki Afrika, tubariki Afrika na watoto wake. Mungu ibariki Afrika na watoto wake. God bless Africa. May her spirit rise up high. Hear our prayers. God bless us. God bless Africa. God bless your families. Thank you. You may have a seat. I like to start by, because today we are going to talk about so many things, and one of my poems, which is on my CD, I like to start with it because I think it charges people to get ready and listen to the poem or listen to what the presenters have to tell us today. This poem, I call it I Have a Dream, and it's a dream that I have for Africa, and I believe you're here because you have a positive dream for Africa. I believe we are all here because we have something that we want to give to Africa. And this poem is called I Have a Dream. The dark continent, Africa. They say that I come from the dark continent, Africa. The last time I checked the word dark in the dictionary, it meant evil or wickedness, without knowledge or enlightenment, a state of ignorance, difficult to understand the absence of light. But I still believe in Africa and I'm proud to be an African, because even though my continent has been marred by civil wars, ethnic wars, tribal wars, and HIV and AIDS is killing my people in masses, while the world watches and the media shows with no remorse, please do not let the media fool you, because to them news is only when it bleeds, it reads. But I'm not going to abandon my people, and I am not going to disown my ancestors, and no matter what they say, I am not going to deny my race. He said, I have chosen to stand up for Africa. I have chosen to defend my history, protect my land, eliminate the perpetrators and their wickedness, and declare peace in the name of justice. Let us not forget that Africa is the richest continent in natural resources, from gold to diamond, rubber to copper, timber to oil. Africa is widely known for its tourism industry. Africa exports tea, coffee, just to name a few. Africa is beautifully endowed with the Great Rift Valley, the Victoria Falls, the pyramids, the oceans, the seas, and even its people. And now, 80% of the world's supply of coltan, a mineral that is used to manufacture cell phones and computers in the whole world, is found in Africa. Tell me, what darkness comes from all this light? Yet some of my people want to turn our blessings to curses, letting their flesh control their spirit, making a brother kill his own brother, kill his own father, rape his own mother and his own sister in the name of money, power, riches, and fame. Why are we failing to see the big picture? That if we stand up together, rid ourselves of all the corrupt leaders, we can attain riches beyond our imagination, for we are already rich. And if we have to trade, let us not exchange our minerals for cheaper change, while the Western world reaps all the benefits. Let us not exchange our minerals for arms to kill our own people. Who then will stand for us if we cannot stand together for ourselves? Instead, let us exchange our minerals for better machinery and technology, so that we can become self-sufficient. And instead of depending on the West, we can all work together. For if we let our selfish interests control us, some of our leaders putting our lives on the line just to fatten their big fat bellies, then we are saying that we did not learn from colonization and slavery. And it will be sad to say that history repeats itself. Why are we helping to build other nations and continents while we watch Mother Africa crumble and fall? I am crying for revolution, and I am searching for followers, and I am looking for peacemakers. And until the world says that there shall be no more blood, no more rape, no more poverty on my diamonds, no more blood, no more rape, no more poverty on my gold, no more blood, no more rape, no more poverty in my oil, and no more blood, no more rape, no more poverty on my cell phone. We as a people need to stand up together and defend what is ours, fight for what is ours, own what is ours in peace and not in war. So just like Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream, I too have a dream. I have a dream that one day Africa shall lend and give aid to the world. Oh yes. And I have a dream that one day we shall find the cure to HIV and AIDS and rid our continent of this dreaded disease. And I have a dream that one day our children shall teach the Western children our culture instead of it being vice versa. And I have a dream that one day all the African heads of state will come together, speak in one voice, and together form and create one country, one continent. The United States of Africa. The United States of Africa. So listen to our mothers calling. For when Mama Africa calls, we must answer. And I know that we shall get to the mountain top. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Anna Malago. So as I said earlier, we know that there are many ways to skin a cat. And one way to educate our youth and educate our people is through culture. And culture doesn't have to be reactionary. It can be revolutionary, like our sister here told us a whole story about Africa and what we must do. And she ended it by saying we must have a United States of what?
Africa.
A United States of
Africa.
Thank you. And you see my United States of Africa shirt, right? Because we understand that it's our number one priority as African people to unify Africa. Now I'm going to ask a question. How many people in this room are in an organization? Okay, so about half. How many people are active in that organization? About half. So this is a little unusual, right? That half the people in the room are active in an organization and in an organization. Because we understand that organization decides everything. We realize that in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah did not do it alone. He did it with the Convention People's Party. Before that, he was with the UGCC. We understand that in Azania, South Africa, that none of the leaders did it alone. There was a PAC, the ANC, a ZAPO. We understand that as we go throughout the African continent and the African world, that organization is what brought us where we are. So it's befitting that we have two sisters who, of course, we know sisters bear 51% of the struggle, because we're 51% of the population, I hope, that are going to tell us a little bit about their organization and what they're doing in order to advance Pan-Africanism, what they're doing in order to help their community, that community being Africa and African people. So we're first off going to have a representative from the Africa League for Justice and Democracy come up and talk a little bit about the organization, but also to remind us that there's a very important program coming up on May 7th that we all should be at. Come on up, sister.
First, I will thank Nyaka for giving me the opportunity to stand here before you and tell a little bit about our organization, in which Nyaka himself is a member of the board. The African League for Human Rights and Democracy is a grassroots organization of Africans and Friends of Africa. You may be wondering why the need of another organization. This new NGO will focus on what is happening in all over Africa, not just a subset, a region, or a specific country. We are interested in social development in Africa, democracy, good governance, respect for human rights, and the rule of law. Our objective is to advance human rights through sustainable economic progress and in key social areas, especially in education and health. Now, you may wonder how we intend to achieve that. It's by reaching out to Friends of Africa, the African diaspora worldwide, and through partnership with organizations, associations, or entities that are working in these areas. This NGO is not trying to replace whatever work others have been doing. We will support their work. We simply want to help make things move a bit faster. And for that, we are asking everyone in the diaspora to come together and work for Africa. Before I conclude, I would like to ask you to please allow me to re-emphasize some of the things that we all know. Mainly that all Africans, no matter where we are, we must be efficiently organized. Pool our energy and resources together. Put aside our little differences in order to come up with better, targeted strategies to support economic development in our countries. Now, as you may be aware, through either Trans-Africa's news broadcast, RFE, maybe C-SPAN, maybe WPFW, that the African League is hosting a forum at GW on May 7th. This is sponsored by the students of GW. Why? Because they are the future leaders of America. We have to work with the students in the United States if we want to bring change in our continent. And please, we need to understand what is happening in our continent in terms of human rights, what are the prospects, how we in the diaspora can help support those working on these issues, face some of the challenges. This is an opportunity for us to ask questions. Please, do consider coming. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sister. Next up, we're going to have a sister that, and I apologize if I pronounced the organization wrong, that's going to represent the Somomoto History College.
Yes, please. Thank you.
If I say I'll say thank you, it won't be enough. So, needless to say, I'll say thank you, God, thank you, Dr. Nyaka, and thank you all the forces that made it possible for us to be here. I am Nefertiti, my mother called me so, and I believe I'm so, but I didn't realize that because of teasing, I said, no, I'll get another name that's more pronounceable, and I won't get the teasing and have to learn how to fight for myself. Then I became Belinda. I was born in Tanzania. My education is from Uganda, and all the little nasty habits you'll find in me are from Kenya. That makes me a true East African girl. So, East Africa, Tanzania, the cradle of mankind, I do not have to tell you anything about it, but except share what inspired me. Anna, you'll have to come down. You'll have to come down here. What inspired me and the others to take a culture or a tradition that has been in the Swahili land forever. You have to hold this for me, okay? Thank you. So, we have what is culture? Everybody has a definition. You have habits, they form into little customs, they become traditions. Eventually you have a culture. Now, in the Swahili land or in East Africa, we have a tradition called, a tradition which made a culture in a cloth. Okay? We are what we eat, what we dress, what we speak, and our friends make us. So, this is a kanga cloth. We see, look at all the African women in here, or everywhere you've seen them. They are very colorful, very beautiful, and everyone is trying to outdo the other one creatively. So what we did with this tradition was, or rather how this tradition came about, was pieces of cloth, okay, from the Portuguese. If you know anything about the Swahili culture, it's an infusion of Arabic, British, German, you name it, but mostly it has a Bantu basis. Bantu culture is translated into this cloth. What is this cloth? You have a border, you have the motif which will carry whatever image if you want, and then you have a message. Now, this message normally is usually a saying, a proverb, or just a message. We use this cloth as a medium of communication, a platform of communication for our women to wear around their waist. This was for you, Anna. No. Put this around you, wear it like a true African Swahili girl, and then you have to stretch yourself around here, and then I want to make a point. So, for us, they say Africans don't read, or black people do not read. A black man will read something that is strategically placed. Okay? Okay. Cover it. Yeah. No, cover it. No, cover it. Yeah. Hold on. And then go around. Level Peter. Now tell me, what hot, red-blooded African man or man will not turn around to look at my sister Anna? Messages, brands are created, messages are effective if they're subliminal enough and are carried by the right medium. Now, what better medium than a beautiful African sister like that? Now, this is what happens to the message over there. The men will look and think, oh, they only looked at the part that interested them. But trust me, subconsciously, the message we have on that cloth has already registered. The message on this particular cloth, you have to turn around, don't be shy, please. The message here, I know you all recognize these people, I don't need to introduce anybody. The message here says in Swahili, okay, it says uhuru. What is uhuru, everybody? Please tell me. Freedom. Freedom from what? Well, that's a good one. You need to sleep on it. I'm not giving you the answer. Uhuru. Then you have umoja. What is umoja? Unity. Unity. That's what we are lacking. Unity. And then you have amani. What is amani? Peace. Peace. And then mshikamano means solidarity. This is what the Africa Union, or the Organization of Africa Union, was founded on. This is what we are all about. So when I designed this, it was because I knew it was imperative, not just for the Swahili girls back home, but for the descendants of Africa in the diaspora, wherever we are. We needed to remember, we need to acknowledge that the ideals, okay, the sacrifices made by those who made it possible for us to be here, the giants on whose shoulders we stand on, do not die. We needed to advocate that. The most unfortunate thing is that whenever we come here, especially us in the diaspora, the first thing we do when we have the stamp at the airport, we shed off our being. Culture is about who you are. It's what it makes you. The little traditions, the little cultures, that's what you are. So who are you? We are faced by an identity crisis, not just here in the US. Unfortunately, the diasporan looks at the African American, or rather the descendant of Africa here, and says, oh my God, oh, look at that, and you laugh at that, and you scorn it, because you do not know. Because after that, we have, Obama naturally has to be there. I mean, I couldn't carry everything. Can you please open that? How many people have you spoken to that remember? Or how many people here know who said one God, one aim, one destiny? What was the message about? One God, one aim, one destiny. What was this about? How many people know that Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just say, I have a dream. For you to have a dream, you have to be asleep. And everybody's been drumming that message to us because they know we will go back to sleep. and that's what we've been doing. So we don't have messages. So we are using this platform to beautify it, to beautify history, to revive the Pan-African, Pan-Africanism or the Pan-African spirit. I didn't know that there was another organization. I didn't know, I wasn't aware, but I just took what we had and we're using that. I could go on forever, but trust me, 3 minutes is all I have.
And also for the men.
Yeah, for the men, yeah, we do have the men. Yeah, no, the men make shirts. You should see the new designs that we have.
When it is cold,
you know?
Yeah, and cover yourself.
This is okay. That's a very good one. These clothes were manufactured in Tanzania. Tanzania, unfortunately, like most African countries, the economic power, the economies are being held by powers that be who are non-Tanzanian or non-African, who have no interest in us. So I tried to establish a factory over there so that we can utilize the cotton, the talents, etc., and use the AGOA forum to bring this in. It didn't happen. I almost lost my life, so I had to come back here. So we are establishing a manufacturing plant here in the US. Use the talents of the descendants of Africa, the technology that is available here, and then we'll be very soon manufacturing the same. With the designs. Now you should see the designs of clothing, the designs of the bags and the shoes, all the accessories that go with that cloth. Anna can testify to that. They are so beautiful. I apologize. I mean, just imagine, okay, I forgot I was wearing a dress, but imagine this dress on a high heel, 6-inch heel, you know, with the glasses and the bells and the whistles we women like to put on. And tell me, how many spirits would have been awakened by my just passing by a street? You understand? Yes. So now, Jesus, I get emotional when it gets to that. But this is what I'm saying. Consolidation of efforts is important. Please, since you're here, God will bless you and God will bless us all. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. And are you selling these items here today?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, so
No, this one here was Dr. Ngaka. This was for Dr. Ngaka. Where is he? Oh, I don't have it. No. Huh? You didn't take it? No. Come on, I told you to wrap it and not take it off. And then in Jiva, what were you going to do?
No, don't worry.
No.
Okay, thank you so much, sister. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we can't purchase them today, but we can get with the sister. She will be able to tell you how you can purchase those wonderful items. Next, for our organization, we have Brother John, who is from the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the organization that I belong to. He's going to tell you a little bit about the party and about an upcoming event we have. Brother John.
Good afternoon. Just as Njiba is, I'm a cadre with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and this is an important forum for us because our overall objective is Pan-Africanism. As an organization, we have, from our very onset, sought to struggle and to organize people around Pan-Africanism, and we have a very concise definition in terms of Pan-Africanism being the total liberation and unification of Africa and its development under scientific socialism. So we are promoting that amongst all of our people, the better than billion of Africans both at home and throughout the diaspora. The All African People's Revolutionary Party was organized in response to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, in his call for an All African People's Revolutionary Party in 1966 in his Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. And much of the activity that we are engaged in as an organization is about studying not only the works of Nkrumah, the works of Sekou Touré, the works of people like Lumumba and Malcolm X, the works of many of the leaders of not only the African Revolution, but of other revolutions, in an effort to get a better understanding of the way forward in terms of developing and empowering our people. And as a part of that, a big part of that, because we see the importance of developing a revolutionary African intelligentsia. And that's why you all are here today, because you see that importance. That's why you come to forums like this, because you're seeking knowledge. You're seeking a better understanding of the problems we face and the solutions that we can forge together. To do that, we need a revolutionary African intelligentsia. So this is one of the tasks that we have taken upon ourselves as a party. We aren't the only ones, but we seek to involve ourselves, engage ourselves with others that are part of this revolutionary African intelligentsia. And one of the things that we're doing on an ongoing basis in the All African People's Revolutionary Party to forward this is we organize what are called political education work-study circles, where people can come together on a regular basis and they can study about African history. They can study about the alternative economic systems that the world has been engaged in, to get a better understanding of capitalism, to get a better understanding of socialism, to get a better understanding of communism, to get a better understanding of the negative nature of Zionism and imperialism, so that we'll understand both what we must fight against and what we must fight for. We'll get a better understanding of our enemies and a better understanding of our friends. So this is why we must all come together and struggle to develop a revolutionary African intelligentsia. A major program that we've been engaged in since our inception is African Liberation Day. African Liberation Day is historically on the 25th of May. And what we have attempted to do is to engage other organizations, other formations, others struggling that want to both understand the history of Africa and also understand what type of solutions we need. So since the early 70s, we have been engaged every year in organizing an African Liberation Day here in the Washington, D.C. area. So we're continuing that effort. And on May 18th, which is actually the week before historically African Liberation Day, we're organizing an African Liberation Day program at Howard University. And this is going to be that Friday the 18th, and it's going to have 3 segments to it. The first segment is going to be from 2 to 5 in the afternoon, where we're focusing in on engaging different youth and student organizations, and their representatives are going to be on this dynamic panel that you'll be able to listen to their word in terms of what is going on and what must be done. The second phase of our African Liberation Day celebration will take place also at Howard University, Blackburn Center, from 5 to 7, where we're going to honor the work of some of the key embassies in terms of their countries, in terms of how they move to engage in empowering people. We're going to highlight both the work of Zimbabwe and the work of Cuba. The third phase of the African Liberation Day celebration will be from 7 to 9, where we'll highlight an African-centered film and a discussion centered around the way forward. So we hope that all of you will not only come, but you'll share this information with your friends, your organizations, because we see it's so important for us to engage with each other in terms of gaining a better understanding of the world so that we can make better decisions in terms of moving Africa forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother John. Again, there is a flyer on the front desk there about African Liberation Day if you didn't get all that information down in your head. We have one more organization that we want to get a brief 2-minute presentation about the work that has been done. And then we're going to move directly into our experts. So we're going to call a representative up from the Africa Memory Game.
Hello. Thank you. My name is Pauline Puma. I'm from Cameroon. I created the Africa Memory Game in 2009. It's a board game that has 100 questions of history, geography, culture about Africa. Why I create the Africa Memory Game? Just simple. I was, during my schools, I was doing a lot of workshop about Africa, but I found out that my own children that were born in America didn't know about Africa. Just the food is not enough, you know. When we cook fufu and everything, we think is enough to know a little bit about Africa, but they didn't know. And I found out also that they came out of school knowing nothing too, because my 5-year-old came one day and asked me if I have AIDS when I was a child. And I asked her why. She said at Black History Month, because it's study only Africa during Black History Month, and sometimes it's one page. And she saw a movie at the school where they were showing her children of Africa having AIDS in a village and everything. So she get the idea that all Africans have AIDS and they outgrow of it. So it kept me very mad, because I look at the curriculum, I found out they learn a little bit about Africa on the 7th grade only. And I say it's a big concern, because there's a big population of us that learn so much, that have PhD in NOCT or whatever, or on Shekanta job or all of these, but there's the young generation who know nothing. The one who are lucky go to Afrocentric school, but how about the one who go to public school? They don't know anything, and they are not willing to change curriculum, because it's very hard to change curriculum. So I start with my kids. I did this. Thank you. That is like the continent, and I did a race of knowledge on the continent with 100 cards. And I add money. If you are asked a question, like in Southern Africa, like Southern and Eastern, what is the capital of Kenya? Is it Liberia? Is it Nairobi or Lagos? You know the answer, you find. You don't know the answer, you pay. You pay for lack of knowledge. And it works, because nobody likes to lose money, even if it's fake money. So they start learning the answer by memory. And then we transform the game to a game that could be played by any child. So the first, it was a way to reach the young generation. And it's through a game, because you can have a book too, but there's so many books. How many people are reading really? And you can look, the young generation, they prefer to play. Another thing is, through this game, I want to do like a unity of knowledge, because they know so few about Africa. Some were telling me it's only one country and the president is Nelson Mandela. Some were telling me Egypt is in Europe, a lot of them. Some were telling me, I asked them, how many countries are there? They said 2. You hear Cuba and Haiti. And you go through different schools. We can be laughing. We go to Baltimore, you go anywhere. I went all over. They were the same answer. And I knew something from very young is, people judge you by what they know. If they don't know you, they judge you the wrong way. So you have to teach them what they're supposed to know about you in order for them to respect you. So second thing was building the foundation of our children, my children first, then the children of others. I'm in the 3rd edition, because the game sells very fast. As soon as it's out, a lot of people grab it. It's the easiest way to learn about Africa. I'm in the process also to do an application for iPhone and Android. Another thing, just the last thing before I go, the product coming from Africans are very difficult to introduce into the market. I want to let you know, so we can do something about that. First of all, because they are not purchased by Africans. A lot of Africans look at the products, I'm from Africa, I don't buy. And when I asked him what is the capital of South Africa, he told me Swaziland or something like that. You are from Africa, but you surely don't know about everything in Africa. Just learn. And if you don't want to learn, just support. It's the only way our business will survive also. Another thing is, they are not introduced in the public market. When you see an African product, you will stay in an Afrocentric store or Afrocentric festival. It's wrong. We have to push on the quality of a product in order to package them so they can access to any market. Being an African product is not an excuse for bad quality. So we have to take that step. Almost finished with. Hold on. I think the point is, we want your support in order to survive. Like my sister Belinda just said. So it's all I have to say. Thank you.
And do you have games here to sell? Great. So now will be a great opportunity to support. At how much, sister? How much? 25. So now would be a great opportunity to support the sister. All right, so the time has come for us to get into the main part of our presentation. What I'm going to do now is introduce Brother George Duncan, who is going to be our moderator and take us through the rest of our day. Brother George.
Thank you, Njiba. All right. All right, good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Let's get to serious business now with our speakers. My name is George Duncan, and I will be the moderator for the conference tonight, our third conference of the year, with the topic, the Eurozone crisis, global recession, and the future of the CFA franc zone. Before I introduce the speakers, let me give you a brief description of the French CFA and its zones. The French CFA is a French-controlled currency used in 14 West and Central Africa countries. Most of these countries are French-speaking, and they are grouped in two regional zones. So the West Africa Economic and Monetary Zone and the Central Africa Economic and Monetary Zone. The colonial era agreement between France and the CFA zone countries require that former colonies deposit the bulk of the currency reserve in the French public treasury. So over the year, there's been some major political changes, financial changes, and also some economic events that occurred. In 1991, for example, the European Maastricht Treaty, which was a turning point in the future of the CFA zone. In 1994, the CFA franc was devalued. In 1998, the euro was created. In 2008, there was a world economic and financial crisis, starting in the United States with the mortgage crisis, spreading all over the world, and also reaching Europe, basically the European zone, the Eurozone, and also France, which controls the CFA. So lately, there have been some changes in the world. The rise of new economic and trade powers, meaning China, Brazil, India, South Korea, and also Russia. So in the light of all these changes and events, what kind of future should we be looking for in the CFA franc zone? For an answer to this question, let me introduce you our honorable speakers. I will first start with Mr. Nash Foku, and then I'll move on with Mr. Salomon Sami. So let me start with Mr. Nash Foku. After Mr. Nash Foku speaks, and then I'll introduce Mr. Salomon Sami. Mr. Nash Foku is an economist, consultant for Business Monitoring International, an associate, an adjunct instructor of economics and international business at the Metropolitan Community College in Missouri. Nash Foku obtained his first doctorate in economics and banking from the Catholic University of Sacred Heart in Milan, Italy, and his PhD in economics from the University of Missouri. He has a Master's of Science in Economics from the City College of New York and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics study Option Economic and Planning at the University of Cocody, Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. Nash Foku has 15 years of experience in international business, economic analysis, investment and politics. Nash Foku began his career as a trade analyst for the Minister of Commerce in Ivory Coast. As a trade analyst, he performed risk analysis and market research for Ivorian firms. His research assisted European and American firms in selling and developing new markets through our extensive network of businesses, government agency contact in West Africa. Prior to joining Business Monitoring International and Associates, Mr. Nashpoku worked as an independent consultant and as a senior international business consultant at the Centre Ivoirien du Commerce International in Abidjan. It's in Ivory Coast. He conducted market research and analysis to guide Ivorian government agencies in identifying international market for Ivorian business development efforts. Nashpoku is very fluent in French and Italian. He has over 10 articles published in economic magazine and newspaper around the world. So Mr. Nashpoku will give us a recent example of France using its power on the French CFA and its own to influence decisions. So the theme of his presentation will be the Ivory Coast crisis and the crisis in the CFA zone. Mr. Nashpoku, please.
How you doing? Good, thank you. Well, I would like to introduce, to say thanks to the organizer of this great meeting, Dr. Nyaka. I was asked by Nyaka if I could just give of my time to be here. Actually, I live in Kansas City, Missouri, which is in the center of the United States. I work over there for the past 10 years. I'm also adjunct instructor of economics. So the theme that we're going to debate tonight, is really what is the future of the CFA zones. Actually, the answer will be simple. I do believe that there will not be future in the CFA zone because we have seen that, as we know. Actually, we're going to take like one example on the Ivory Coast, which has 22 million of people living there. Before the post-election crisis, the growth rate of Côte d'Ivoire was about 3%. And the GNP was $1,700, which means that every Ivorian people, according to the World Bank and the IMF, has $17,000. And today, compared to the era of President Gbagbo to the era of President Ouattara, there's a big difference because now we have a high inflation rate, which is about 22%. During the Gbagbo era, it was around 5 to 6%. And the index of corruption is high. And the index of civil liberty is high. And according to the World Bank, they use what is called the IDH, which is the Index of Development of Human. Ivory Coast is classified over 130 positions, so the situation is bad. As far as the CFA is concerned, as we said, there are two big central banks, which is the BCAO in West Africa, where there are 8 countries belong to that central bank area, and in Central Africa, we have 6 countries. Example, listen up clearly. The board member of the BCAO, which is the central bank, has 14 members. Between those 14 members, we have 2 French people. Those 2 French have the veto right. In the Central Bank of Central Africa, there's 8 board members, 2 French people with the veto right, which means that there is not anything that they can do to implement any politics in finance, development, investment. Everything's got to come from France, because this veto right is very powerful that any African country cannot do nothing about it. So the basic understanding is that the foreign reserve, if any country, example, sell cocoa for $100, $65 got to be in the French treasury, in the account that they call the compte d'opération. It's a account set apart by the French system to control all the currency movement in those African countries. Today, since 1945, when the CFA was created. Why the CFA was created? Because after the conference of Bretton Woods, French were having a lot of problems to finance the public deficit. They didn't know what to do. So they said, all right, let's create this monetary zone in order to finance our public deficit. In 1948, there was the first devaluation. And the first thing they gave was the franc of the French colony. The second name came with the French community something. And the third one became, now that we are using the French CFA, is now the franc of the communauté financière in Africa. So they become more and more flexible in order, because I can say that it's really a colonialism system which I call the terrorism. Banking terrorists, I wrote an article about it, is what is happening. And what they do, they have this French bank located in most of those African countries. In Ivory Coast, they have like 4 banks where they used to manipulate the African people. All right? They will never give any loan, those banks will never give any loan to any African serious businessman. What they prefer to do is to finance, advance on their checks, deposit. They like to finance a funeral. When somebody loses like a parent, they will go to the bank, and the bank they love to finance those kind of loans. But they will never finance any serious project brought by any young African. We are smart. We are able to do business. But you know what? To do business, you got to have a financial support, which we don't have. They only prefer to finance those French people that are in default in the country, people that are not able to compete with the European market, to send them back to Africa to take control of our economy, which is really serious. So, as far as we are going, the post-electoral crisis of 2011 brought a situation that we were really upset, because the French imposed so many sanctions on our financial system. They asked the BCAO to close down every financial business with Côte d'Ivoire. They asked the BCAO, which is the central bank, to stop any financial transactions. And at the same time, they asked all the banks, the colonial banks in Côte d'Ivoire, to close down the business without giving any information to the client. Because according to the international banking law, before you close down the bank, you have to inform the people there 3 months before, but they just wake up, okay, because we don't like President Gbagbo, so today we close down any bank. So, because we were in default. Even our stock exchange, which is one of the best managed by the brightest mind of Côte d'Ivoire economy, we were in default, we couldn't pay our creditor. The system put in place is really serious, because it shows that those African countries, we are not independent. We depend on the French system. Our political, financial, monetary, everything that we have does not belong to us. How can President Wade, the former president of Senegal, in one of his interviews, asked years ago, how many money we got now in the French treasury since 1945? Because how we can have a lot of money in that bank in France, and our people are poor. We are most of the highly indebted countries in Africa, but they will never tell us how many money those countries have in the foreign reserve in the French treasury. It's unacceptable. In Africa sub-Saharan, most of those 14 countries, 9 of them are declared by the World Bank as a highly independent, highly indebted countries. They should stop. They should stop, but the fact is that we still have some puppets in Africa that are manipulated, that play the game of the colonial system. That's why this system is still going on. How can we stop it? It is simple, because a sovereign country has the right to have its army. A sovereign country has the right to have its constitution. A sovereign army has the right to have its currency. Because if you don't have currency and your currency is manipulated, if your economic decision is decided by the French or by the whatever it is, you are nobody. That's why people think that, they're happy to see how beautiful is Abidjan. But at the same time, everything that is there don't belong to us. So, what we propose during the crisis, the post-electoral crisis, President Gbagbo, when they closed down those colonial banks in Cote d'Ivoire, President Gbagbo came up with an idea. Now it's time to make sure that those national banks we have do what they got to do now. But it was difficult, because in the banking system, there's something that they call the check clearance. When you got to wire money from DC to Abidjan or to Nairobi, you don't send the money as a paper. Everything is based on the computer. So when they block that system, you are done. So we come out with the idea to open our own banks. Meeting has been done. Most of our brightest economists come out with the idea that it's time for us to go away from the nonsense of Cote d'Ivoire, of the French system. So the best idea for me and for most of the Africans is to have their own central bank, especially in those countries that belong to the CFA zone, to say no to that colonial system, to open their own central bank, to have their own governor, to have their own banks, and their own currency. It's simple. The country is rich. Money is linked with wealth. Money is linked with gold. Money is linked with diamond, with petroleum. Let me give you one example. The newest African country called South Sudan. South Sudan has its own central bank. South Sudan has its own currency. South Sudan has its own governor. And South Sudan will have their own banks. I bet in the next 5 or 10 years, if the leaders of South Sudan are serious, that country can be a powerful country in Africa. But Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, Senegal, all those countries, Gabon, they stayed in the system of engrenage, how they say, of the French colony, using the bank in Africa to control our economy, to take everything we got. Well, the time is short. I think, I should be in my own classroom. I got 5 more minutes. So the situation is really serious because we don't know where we are going. We don't know where our work is going. And the stupid things I can say, in Ivory Coast, they asked the former president not to tell how many barrels of oil we export every day. And President Gbagbo said, no, I've been elected by the people. They got to know how many barrels of oil we extract from our offshore. You see. So today, when Gbagbo was there, we knew that we export 50,000 barrels of oil. But today, with the new president we have, we don't even know how many barrels we export. And they love it. And they love it. So the situation is that the future of this CFA, according to the Ivorians, there is no future for us because we want to get rid of that. And we will. We will. It will take time, but it's time to wake up. It's time that those countries that are members of the UMOA stand up with that policy of self-determination, autodetermination, economic freedom, economic independence, be the own of and manage our own economics in order for us to be really, really independent. They were asked, there was this economics from, it's a Nobel Prize, I think from Argentina. He asked, why you guys don't really get rid of that colonial system put in place by the French government over those African countries? They couldn't answer it. Countries like Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, those countries were members of that stupid economic system. But they get rid of that. And now they are really independent. They take ownership of their own economy. How we African people from the south of Sahara, especially the French-speaking country, I think we got a problem. Because countries like Ghana, they have their own currency. They're doing better. Nigeria also. There are like 54 countries in Africa. 46 of them have their own currency. I mean, why Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, all these countries cannot get their own currency to be independent? It's going to come from Côte d'Ivoire. And I wish everybody the best. Thank you very much for your time. And, I'm ready to take all the questions. Thank you.
Let's thank one more time Mr. Nash Boku for his presentation. And Mr. Nash Boku will take questions later on after Mr. Salomon Sameh comes and speaks on the stage. But before I move on to Mr. Salomon Sameh, I would like to introduce you one brother, Mr. Paul Taiwo, is going to speak briefly, again, very briefly, about this organization. And let me call Mr. Paul Taiwo here up on the stage so we can just briefly talk about his presentation and his organization. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Paul Taiwo. How are you today?
Okay.
Incredibly, I brought my laptop to be able to show you what my organization does. And I run a ministry called Africa Needs You. It's a developmental organization. And I've been given 4 minutes. And I will keep to that. Amen? Amen. This is a faith-based organization. All that we do is predicated on the Lord's word. What change do we want for Africa? I'm an African, I'm a Nigerian, I'm an African American. I can qualify for you everything that I am. I've been in this country, I came to do my master's only for 1 year. And now I'm in this country for 27 years. Praise the Lord. This is a beautiful country. Very beautiful country. We are so highly educated. A lot of Africans are doctors, lawyers. You could say I'm a doctor, but I'm a reverend of the Lord. Amen. I've put a timer on my watch, so once it stands, that's my time is up.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I keep to time. That's one thing we need in Africa, is that we keep to time. If we are going places, where am I going? We're calling for a massive infrastructural development plan for Africa. After the Second World War, the U.S. graciously put together what you call a Marshall Plan in Europe. A lot of you are French speaking. You've been to Europe. You see how beautiful Europe is now. That wasn't what it was 1948. But they put it together between 1948 and 1952. 5 years. They revitalized the whole continent of Europe. So we're calling for the same thing. I wish I had the internet here. I'm surprised they didn't give you internet here. You are in an hotel, you're paying for a service. Yeah. You should get an internet. But it is well. Amen? We are having a concert next week, Africa Praise. That will be our 5th concert. We started this organization 6 years ago. We talk too much, my brothers and sisters. Too much. A lot of people are suffering on the continent of Africa. I grew up in a village, that's why I know. If I didn't grow up in a village, I won't know what I'm talking about. But I've been blessed to be in this beautiful country, highly educated. But we need to take a stand. We need to call for a massive infrastructural development plan. What are we calling for? We're calling, I have this outside, so if you want to pick it up, we're calling for a, look at the US. It's been done in Japan, it's been done in Korea. It's been done in 5 places around the globe. But we need to be serious also. I stopped talking about corruption and nepotism and everything because that's a distraction. What are you doing? What is it that you're doing? I was going to show you the website. Go to the website, africaneedsyou.org.
African what?
Africa Needs You. The letter U, the figure U, not YOU.org. And go and look at it. See what we do. We put in asking. Matthew 7:7 says, ask and it shall be given to you. And we're putting it on the internet. People are asking for boreholes. They're asking for schools. They're asking for clinics. And we're doing all this. But that's not what we want to do. We want to convince everyone in the world that Africa needs a massive infrastructural development plan. Amen? Amen. Join us next weekend, Saturday, when we have the Africa Praise session. The alarm sounds. The Lord bless you all.
Now, let me introduce Mr. Salomon Samen. He's a PhD. But before I let him on the stage, let me give you his brief biography. Dr. Salomon Samen is a senior technical advisor on trade, finance, and regional integration to government of Eastern and Southern Africa since 2010. He joined the World Bank in 1986 through the Young Professionals Program. He had a variety of assignments in the World Bank, including country economist, trade economist, industrial economist, regional trade economist, regional trade coordinator, and country manager. As a trade economist in the early 90s, he pioneered the formulation and conceptualization of the framework of trade and fiscal policy reforms in Central Africa and also Western Africa. As a regional trade coordinator, he led preparation of diagnostic trade integration studies in several countries. He led and also was involved in several World Bank adjustment or investment operations in the African region over the 20 years. From 2005 to 2010, he taught and led an organization of training for senior policymakers across the globe with a special focus on South Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Salomon Samain holds an award-winning PhD in economics with specialization in trade policy and industrial development. He also holds 2 master's degrees, one in finance from the GW University, George Washington University, that he had in 1998, and a Master of Art in Economics from the University of Yaoundé, Cameroon, in 1982. Prior to joining the World Bank, he also taught trade and growth at the universities in France and Cameroon. So in the light of the Eurozone crisis, Dr. Salomon Samain will elaborate on the mechanism of the CFA franc zone, its strength, deficiency, and also its impact on the CFA zone. The theme of his presentation will be rethinking the CFA zone franc arrangement. So, if I may, let me introduce now Dr. Salomon Samain up on the stage.
Thank you very much. You are very kind. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me express my great pleasure to be here today. It's really a delight to be here today. And I would like, before getting into this discussion, to start by thanking the entire organization, that put this presentation together. I also would like, to congratulate them for the work that they have been doing in the community, since they have been created. It's really wonderful. And many things, are being done. And it's extremely important to acknowledge the work, done, by people like Dr. Nyaka and his own team. Thank you very much. I would also like, to thank my very good friend, Dr. Fofa, who is not here today, who has been hanging on my neck in the last 6 months or so, to make sure that when I come to Washington, I need to have this, in my program. So it's really a delight to be here. And I would also like, to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time, because there are many other things to do, for such a weekend, but you have managed to be here. And I hope, our technicians succeed to get everything all right, to get the presentation going. And when you are ready, we are going to start. We are going to be talking about a very fascinating topic. It's a topic, that affects at least 140 million people in Africa. And what is very impressive is that, the system that you are going to describe has survived everything. The franc CFA survived the Second World War. The franc CFA survived, the end of colonization with the accession to independence of many countries. The franc CFA survived the end of the Bretton Woods system. The franc CFA survived the end of the French franc, to which is even attached. This is absolutely amazing. To see a system that was created during the colonization, extending beyond colonization. And now, we are the 52 years after independence, the franc CFA is still there. It's absolutely amazing. How can that be done? It's difficult, to explain how that can be done. But there are some explanations. I'm going to take you through, the issue of the franc zone, and the objective of this presentation is not to take you too much through the franc zone, but to assess the implication of the euro crisis on the franc zone and what the franc zone is doing about it. I'm not going to go to too much details, like our colleague, Kwaku just did, but I'm just going, to present to you, the euro crisis, what are the implications for the CFA franc, and we'll take it from there. If the technology is fine, we are going to start. All right. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's start, with this presentation. I'm going to take you very quickly, to what we are going to discuss today. We are going to discuss, 4 items. We are going to go one by one. First of all, I will take you through the euro crisis. You hear everything about it. Before coming here, I was still hearing about, the euro crisis, with what is going on in Spain, and so on and so forth, with riots. I'm going to try to present to you, with the implication of the euro crisis on our countries. And I'm going to take you a very quick overview of the CFA countries. What are we talking about? We are talking, if people mean something to you, we are talking about 140 million people. That's what we are talking about. That are, mostly French former colonies. And I'm going to describe to you, what is wrong with the system. Some of the things, I don't fully agree with our colleagues, on some of the recommendations. But at least the facts are there. The facts are there. I will take you through the facts and tell you what is wrong in that system and how it can be changed. And I'm also going to sketch out, some recommendations to get out of this. And I have to tell you that, this is part of the research that has been done. I've been working on those countries, for many years. I'm from one of those countries myself, and this is part of recent research that has been carried out very recently. Okay. Before we start, if you forget everything, I want you to take something, extra important. What is the message that we are going to take home today? That's the most important. We need to completely overhaul the entire CFA franc zone arrangement. It cannot stand. Our parents inherited this, from the colonial system. It's our responsibility. At one time, it was justified that the system was there because we were not able to think about the implication. But today we are capable of thinking about our issues and bringing about, some solution to our issues. That's, the central message. And what I want you to highlight is that if we keep, postponing the reforms that are needed, the cost is extremely high in those countries. In terms of implication, about, it was 130 million people, in 2007, but it's about, 140 million people today. In terms of job, in terms of use of domestic resources, in terms of competitiveness, productivity, and improvement of living standard, of about 140 million people. That's what we are talking about. We cannot continue indefinitely to delay. It was the responsibility of the colonizers at some point. Now it's the responsibility of Africans to take this matter, in their own hands and chart, their own future. That's the central message, for this presentation. And I just want to stress the fact that policymakers of this part of the world, they got to be proactive. They got to be proactive. They got, to end their passiveness, their reactiveness. They just react to things. Today we are talking about, the Euro crisis. Tomorrow we are going to talk about something else, And it's always like that. We don't do anything, and when there are problems, we come up, with solutions. That got to stop, and this, contribute, to that change. In the first part of this presentation, I will take you through the Euro crisis. I will not dwell too much, in the details. And where does that crisis come from? If you look at the situation, we can go back, to the mid-90s and go through the .com bust and, bubble, and bust. We can go back, to that. We can go back, to the housing crisis and see, how the housing, there was a housing boom from the 2000 that burst in 2006 about. But everything almost started, around 2008 with what we can describe, as the triple F crisis. The triple F crisis that we are talking about, you all know about it because it's a little bit in line with the, coming to power of Obama. It's the financial crisis that was compounded, with the fuel crisis, the food crisis. And because most of you are still attached to Africa, you know what happened in 2008, riots in the streets in many countries. In my own country, about, from some sources, about 150 people were killed, in 2008. So those are the seeds of the Euro crisis. And it translated into a vicious cycles of big deals, deficit, big debt, downgrade, default, and depression. So basically we move, from the triple F crisis to the vicious cycles of big D. How do the deficit work? Very simple. Government have problems. For example, I messed up something here.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Here you go. That's what you want?
Okay, that's, just take it there. For example, looking at the food crisis, when, there is a food crisis, that means that what? That prices go up. And the government don't want to lose their power because of the crisis. What do? They spend. They subsidize prices to keep the prices down. It's the same thing for fuel. When, oil prices go up, the government don't want, people to go to the street. They subsidize. And at the end, they spend a lot of money. When they spend a lot of money, they get into big deficit. And in order to get out of the deficit, they continue to borrow. They get heavily into debt. And when they get into debt, the rating agencies notice that they are getting into debt. They downgrade them. As soon as they downgrade them, the next day, they are default. And they get into a cycle of repression and depression. Depression meaning, a decline of the GDP for about 2.5 years or so, something like that. And that's, the origin of the crisis. And what are the manifestations of that crisis, of the Euro crisis? The multi-fold impact, the impact on growth, the impact on unemployment. I was quite astonished today in a country like Spain, where you hear that 24% of people don't have jobs. This is very serious. In the U.S., what's the rate in the U.S. at this moment?
9%.
About 8%, and people are screaming. But in Spain, they're struggling, with 24%. Absolutely amazing. External reserves down. Internal reserves, down. Everything is down. And it's not only affecting, what I call, the big countries, Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. It also affects, what the so-called big countries, France and Germany, struggling, with burden of debt, public deficit, and they're all downgrade. And with their bank exposed, to Greece, to all those countries swimming into toxic sovereign debt. That's, you know, the euro crisis. And how does that affect Africa? Everything, you know, started, you know, in Europe and the US, and it affects Africa in various ways. You know, let's go through some of those ways. Diaspora remittances. We are all from the diaspora. When you stop sending money home, it affects the countries, you know, immediately. I was flabbergasted. About 3 weeks ago, I was in an international conference, you know, representing my government. And some countries were wondering, you know, what the $40 that we sent to them do to them. It was absolutely amazing to me. How much do we send? You send $100, $40, $50, and so on and so forth. When it comes from, you know, 1 million people spread all over the world, it's 40 million. And when you multiply that by many, it's a lot of money. Just, you know, last year, what the diaspora is sending to Africa is about 40 billion per year. Wow. 40 billion, that, you know, the remittance, you know, being sent, you know, to Africa. And the World Bank last year lent about 50 billion. I don't know the precise numbers. And some of the people here, you know, can tell you that that number jumped up. Because for many years, the World Bank was lending about 20 billion only to Africa. And what the diaspora alone is sending is 40 billion. This is significant. So when there is a crisis here, the first, you know, impact, it goes, you know, on the remittances. Because, you know, European countries are also in troubles. When there are problems, they don't rush to be aiding, you know, other countries. They cut off, you know, their debt. The same thing for import. When, you know, things don't work well, the orders are cut off. The orders are cut off. What are the implications for us? Africa don't sell anymore because Europe is our main market. Because for many years, things have, you know, in recent years, things have changed slightly with China and Asia, you know, coming, you know, to fore. Europe is our main market, but things have been changing recently with the shift towards, you know, Asia. And you can see the impact, you know, and the implication on us. You also have, you know, a consequence on the currency evolution. We are hooked, you know, to the euro. All movement of the euro affects, you know, negatively our countries. The price has been extremely heavy for our countries to be attached, you know, to that currency indefinitely. And what are the prospects? What are the implications, you know, of those shocks, you know, on Africa? As I said, you know, remittances, oil price shock in the years, you know, ahead. We are likely to experience some oil shock. We are all affected. You know, you see that here on the pump when you go to the pump station. You are affected by that. In Africa, they also see that. But in Africa, when it is hidden, when government try to manipulate it, you don't see it. But it's a heavy cost for the government because, you know, they pay that, you know, through subsidies and so on and so forth. You know, reduce import, as we mentioned, reduce development aid, social unrest. You don't have, you know, the Arab Spring yet, but, you know, to some extent, you don't know when that is going to come to fall in our part of the world. And at the end of the day, it's lower growth. Slower growth, that means that, you know, the wealth is reduced with implication, you know, on our continent. In front of that situation, what should be done? Our continent is growing, has been growing. You know, faced with the crisis, Africa is the continent that has been growing more than other parts of the world. You know, but the implication of the crisis are going to start, you know, affecting Africa, you know, as of next year. And there are ways to get out of that by doing something, you know, to fix that. In the short term, what can be done? There is a need to respond to social problems. You know, I don't know, you know, if you travel to, you know, to a country, it's extremely important to manage, you know, the social consequences of policies. Extremely important. When you don't manage the social consequences, you know, of crisis, it's riots in the street. Nothing can work in such countries. It's widespread insecurity. We need, you know, to make sure that investors continue to have, you know, confidence, you know, in our system. We also need, you know, to ensure macro stability. We also need tremendous political stability. And the presentation of our friend, Kwaku, before, shows that, without political stability, it's very difficult to get anything done. Extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. But in the long term, what is really needed, is to have, the fiscal sustainability, good governance. I don't want to go too much into details into that. We need jobs. Jobs, jobs. I don't know what about you. When, I call, in my own family, many people, they have nothing. They are just waiting for Western Union. That's the only thing. There are no jobs over there. Even when they have jobs, it's just, to keep them off. We need, to make sure that we create jobs, in that part of the world. And in order to make that happen, we need to enhance our competitiveness and make sure that, the product that we make, and the presentation of our sister were clear about that, we need to be able to sell on other markets. That's what we have to do. And can CFA countries, are they up to the challenges? That's my personal view. They're not up to the challenges for many reasons, because they're not prepared. Not that they don't want. Their short-term, political life is extremely short. They care first and foremost, for their own interests and for their survival. They don't think about the policies, and it distracts them from doing what is needed, to make things happen. And even, if they can do something, it will be extremely difficult for them, to handle that effectively. And to sum up a little bit, this is the situation. The euro is burning, is cracking, and African policymakers, they are there. I don't know if they are sleeping, but it doesn't look like they are doing too much. This first picture is the picture of some of our cousins. It's in Europe. This is in Italy, where, in the context of social unrest, our cousins are fighting with people hosting them. So why, that thing that if Europe is in crisis is because of, immigrants coming, through, and so on and so forth. You can see, another picture there, how the market are in total shambles. To make a long story short, the euro is cracking, and what can Africa do? At least, to safeguard our own interests and to stand up strong. And in the next part, I'm going to give you very quickly what can Africa do. And before telling you, what can Africa do, I need to go through what doesn't work in Africa, in the CFA front. It's not Africa, it's about the CFA front. This is the CFA front zone area. It's west and central, and it has been divided like this since the Berlin conference, and it's west. I don't want to get into detail because my colleagues, already, went through that. And just give you a very bird-eye view, very quickly, of what it is. 140 million people. This is 130 million people, but this was in 2007. And you can see that those countries, those are the CFA countries. Those are the CFA countries. I don't want to go into details. Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, and so on, so forth, Togo, Burkina, and so on and so forth. And when you look at the HDI, this doesn't work very well, so I don't know how to do this. You look at the Human Development Index. It's a composite index, putting together, GDP, putting together, life expectancy, putting together education, and so on and so forth. You see how, our countries are ranked, CFA countries. These are not the best performers. Out of 177, you see some of them, are 176. I don't want to name the countries because I can embarrass some people here. Out of 177 countries. When you look at all of them, 171, 170, out of 177, this is not the most impressive performance one can imagine. And when you look at the corruption perception index, you see that those countries are also lacking behind in a tremendous way. This is not something to celebrate when you put together everything. Now, when you look at economic indicators, consumer price index, that's the inflation. we need, to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. The CFA zone has been they have performed extremely well in terms of putting inflation down. You can see, the performance here. You see that in blue, that's, West Africa, 2% in 2007, 6%, 3, and so on and so forth. While Africa was well above 6, 10, 12, and so on and so forth. That's where, the CFA zone perform well. But the recent research showed that it's not the CFA, the inflation. When inflation is below 9%, it doesn't below, double digit. It doesn't really matter. We should not be hanging on inflation like this, and in the meantime killing and sacrificing, millions of jobs and so on and so forth. And that's what the CFA, countries have been doing. Keeping inflation low, in the meantime sacrificing, the production, sacrificing use of resources, sacrificing employment. This is not good. This is not good. And when we look at the performances, look at the real GDP. This is West Africa compared to Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is in red. You see that, West Africa is below for these years, well below. And if we do a long term, starting, from the 80s and so on and so forth, the performance, is always like that. Sluggish growth. Well, below the potential. When you sit there peacefully and you see those numbers, it doesn't strike you. Go and stay there when there is a strike, when there are riots in the streets, and so on and so forth, to see the consequences of widespread poverty, and lack of competitiveness. I'm just going to take you very quickly, through some of the figures. When you look at the real GDP, for example, this is the Central Africa. In blue, we have Sub-Saharan Africa, and in green, we have the Central Africa, the CIMAC countries. What's the performance? Below the performance of country, in Sub-Saharan Africa. And when you take a long-term view, it's the same story. There are some spikes from here and there, but by and large, they don't perform that well. You can take, many indicators. I don't want to go through, many of them. Even for reserves, international reserves, research show that for reserves, 3 months is about for international reserve. What does that mean? That means that, when a country, if for any reason you are unable, to generate more reserve, you can live for 3 months. It's like a salary for, for somebody. If, the country is cut off from any input coming in terms of foreign reserve, you can survive for 3 months. Can you tell me, what the amount of reserve as far as China is concerned? China is 24 months, 23, 22, 24 months, about 2 years. That means that, if they stop all their relationship with the rest of the world, they can still make it by keeping the same living standard, but continue to import and so on and so forth. It's not the case, for CFA countries. What is amazing is that, the CIMAC countries are the country exporting oil. All of them are oil exporters. All of them except Central African Republic. One would expect them to be doing very well. One would expect them, to have tremendous amount of foreign, reserve. It's not the case. And when, you look at all the indicators, for example, life expectancy, Sub-Saharan Africa, 55 years, CEMAC, 51, and West Africa, 54, still below. You take many indicators, those countries are not performing very well. You can go through data, and it's not particularly impressive. Now, what can we do about that? What can we do? That's the question. Before answering that question, we need to go through, what is wrong in the system. Let me tell you very quickly what is wrong with the arrangement. First of all, the CFA Council governance architecture got to be, revisited immediately. This got to be done immediately. Our friend, Kwaku, the previous speaker, he said that in the board managing those 2 central banks, there are friends. They are nice people. We have many friends. They are very nice people. We have nothing against them, and so on and so forth. But they are sitting in our board, doing what? Sitting in our board, making decisions in our board. 52 years after our independence. This is not acceptable. We accept, we recognize their knowledge. They are very bright people, but they need to come, and support us, provide us, with the assistance. We welcome them. We are friends with them, and so on and so forth. But it's not acceptable that 52 years after they continue to be sitting in our board, regardless of the explanation. That's an illustration of the failure of our countries to take, their fate in their own hands. Another thing, that is, wrong in the CFA zone is the phobia against inflation. As I told you, that's the only thing that they can do, keep inflation down. But there's a big cost to that. Another thing that is wrong, is to peg that with the euro. It was justified at some point because after the Bretton Woods system, most currencies were pegged to the US dollars. But today is no longer the case. It's no longer the case. So the system is completely open and things have changed. So we are still hooked on a system that was given to us about, 60 years ago. This is not too good. And what is also wrong, is the tight monetary policy. I also don't want to dwell too much on that because that has been said, by our colleagues. The monetary policy is very tight. The central bank don't help. They don't help, those countries. I don't want to go into the details of the state that were described. But I will just give you one example. Everybody you know that people, in our house, in our countries, they have houses, they have properties, and so on and so forth. But they are dying because they cannot even use their property. When you have a property, if you pay, all your loan, you can put it, as a collateral and get the money, get home equity out of it, and do whatever you want to do with it. It's not possible in that part of the world, putting those countries down. And that should change. And, there are solutions, for that. There is also a bias against, economic and financial integration. If you are in Chad, if you are in Cameroon, if you export to Cote d'Ivoire, you still have to pay tremendous amount of taxes. Money cannot even move easily from, from Cameroon, from Central Africa to, to the west. It used to in the past, but no longer. That's not, progress, And they are lukewarm on development challenges, and they have neglected research. I've published, in those places at some point in my life. But what makes an institution work, is to work people who think, who are paid, to stay on the back and be thinking about what should be done. Those institutions don't have, they have neglected research for a long time. And also the operational account. Our friend also mentioned the operational account. What happened is that, all foreign exchange, when we export, we have the obligation in view of what we have signed with France to put 50%. It was 65% at some point, but now it's 50% in all countries. That got to change. We put that, in France. We need to be free to manage, our resources as we deem, is good, for interest. That's what is wrong. What can be done now? We need to move away from the fixed peg. We need, to tap to our currency, not to the euro, but to a package. A basket of currencies. There are many ways, to do that. One way to just say that, let's get out of it. But you better be better prepared to get out, because the sufferance, is tremendous. You don't want to put 140 million, people down because you did not prepare well. You need to think through very well before moving on reforms. We need to decolonize the operational account. We need, to bring that. Our reserve, should not be located, in the Federal Reserve. We should be free to look. For our interest, it should be there, that's fine. We have to keep it, in front. We need to diversify our portfolio to make sure that, it's working for our interest. And we also need, to remove the restriction on some central banking. That's got to be changed, We need, to Africanize Africa. We need to Africanize Africa. It's shocking for people to even say that we are to Africanize Africa. Because in the board, the board are not Africans. Up to the mid-70s, those banks were even located in Paris. And they moved to Dakar and to Yaoundé in the mid-70s. And they changed the leadership. But today, we are still hanging around with foreigners in the board of our companies, in our bank. We need capacity building. I want to insist on this. Don't just say that, get out of the franc zone. That's not the solution. You know, you need people who are capable of handling that. At this moment, you know, people there are not capable of handling that. We need people with the skills, with the capacity, you know, with the capacity to make this happen the way it should be. You know, and that goes through capacity building, which is extremely important. We also need to build on the acquis. The acquis is what? Tremendous things have been done. That has been wonderful, and so on and so forth. But we should not just, you know, throw the baby, you know, with the water. We need to build, you know, on what exists already. And we need to scale up, you know, economic and financial integration. And we need to do a package of accompanying measures. We need to improve the business environment. We need to ensure that, you know, the macro system is stable. We need to ensure that, you know, infrastructure are built in that part of the world. We need, you know, to scale up capacity building. I'm not going, you know, to tell you too much time. You know, what can be done? I've already said it. Get out or completely overhaul the system. And I'm in favor of completely overhauling the system. Get out if you have had, you know, 10, 20 people with strong heads thinking about it before. Don't just get out because you have to get out. You know, you need to think through it, you know, very clearly. And these are the people who are going, you know, to play the role. Policymakers, civil society, you know, and so on and so forth. And to conclude very quickly, I'm not going to waste too much of your time. I'm just going to say that, you know, it's time to end the decolonization of the franc zone. It's not, you know, acceptable. That's something that you have inherited, you know, before we were born. We are still going through with that after the independence, you know, of our country. Things have got to be done differently, you know. And if no action is taken by present policymakers, history will remember that, you know, they contributed to some extent in the suffering of well above 140 million people, you know, in Africa. And one thing that you can do yourself, because you are sitting here, you also have, you know, something, you know, a role that you can play. The press can play a role. Academia can play a role. Think tanks and Africa can play a role. Civil society, you know, private sector, rise to everywhere. You know, invade, you know, the press by new ideas to change, you know, the system. I've been involved in some reforms, you know, in some countries recently. I've been attending, you know, many conferences. I was surprised that I sit in many conferences, they give the impression that they don't listen to you. But when they write the report, they say that, you know, what all ideas that, you know, you put on the table are there, you know, for them to use, which is extremely useful. What I want, you know, the last word I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that in order to bring about long and lasting prosperity, in order, you know, to improve the living standard, in order to accelerate, you know, poverty reduction, in order to accelerate economic transformation, you know, of our continent, we all need to be engaged. We should not sit put and let it, you know, to politicians over there. We need to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so before we move into our next Revolutionary Culture Act, we have a shameless ask. We know that everything's not free and freedom ain't free. So we have a big donation bag that we're going to pass around, and we ask that you all dig in your pockets and bring out your cash or bring out your checks if you don't have any cash and help us continue to do this work. We have another conference in June. We want to have the money to do the other conference in June. So we're going to pass the bag around, and please be as generous as possible, because we understand that those of us who are doing this work are sacrificing many things, much of which is our pocketbook. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brother George, who's going to introduce Anna.
Again, thank you very much to Dr. Salman Samin. It was a great presentation with all those details and the numbers and everything that we needed to understand the issue in the CFA franc zone. So now that we're passing anyway, let me introduce now Anna Walago. She's gonna come to the stage for another performance. And then, so let's welcome her one more time.
I want to take this opportunity first to say that after my performance, then there will be question and answers. Before I even start, I want to thank Nyaka and his group for giving me an opportunity to be here again, this time to perform. The reason why I say that is because as artists, I believe we are also very important in these forums. Because if you're not going to hear it through what they speak, maybe by what I'm going to perform, you might hear it. And so we are all needed and we are all connected. And we all need to help each other as we want to uplift Africa. I also have my CDs. I also have a t-shirt. And my t-shirt supports Africa. It says, Africa, my pride, my joy. And lastly, I also now have a DVD of my performances. So first, before I start doing my second set, can I hear from all the Africans? Can all the Africans say, yeah, yeah? Ah, there are no Africans here. Can all the Africans say, yeah, yeah? Now can all the Americans say, yeah, yeah? Ah, guess what? That means that today the Africans are the majority. So if you're an African, you can clap for yourself, and also the Americans can clap for you. But how many people just arrived from Africa like 10 years ago? 20 years ago? 5 years ago? So let me give you a story of how I came to America. When I came to America, I was very excited. I was just like one of you here. Hey! I said, oh, they have brought me to the land of milk and honey. Hey! I said, this is the land. I was excited. And then when my friends introduced me to chicken, I said, hey! I mean, chicken was so cheap, not like in Africa, the way chicken we have it for Easter and Christmas. Here, chicken was all the time, and it was almost very. I said, hey, America. I was excited. Then all of a sudden, when I was now meeting some of my friends, how many people like potato salad? Let me tell you why Africans don't like potato salad. Because when one day I went to this big party, and they told me, oh, I'm going to have some potato salad. Guess where I put it? In the microwave. They said, hey! You don't do that. Told me I said, why? I said, I mean, Africa, we only eat hot food, yeah? So I was excited. All of a sudden, hey, they're introducing me to these foods. One day I went somewhere and they told me, I said, salad. I said, can I have some salad? The lady said, sure, would you like some dressing? I look at her. I look at myself. She said, ma'am, would you like some dressing? I look at her. I look at myself. And she asked me the last time, ma'am, would you like some dressing? I said, ma'am, I'm dressed. So, this American culture was very interesting to me. That's what we call culture shocks. So all of a sudden, sometimes, I'm trying to speak with the American English. They're telling me, oh, you're not even doing it right. Because now they're telling me I have an accent. Is having an accent a problem? No. Is having an accent a problem? No. Because if they come to Africa, we'll tell them they have what? But we're not going to speak to them slowly like they don't understand English. So I started getting frustrated. I said, hey, maybe I need to learn the American culture or accent. So I bought this book saying, Learning the American English. I tried to learn that accent. And the only thing I got right was, what you gonna do? And even then, they told me I was wrong. So I said, this America is very difficult for me. So I was trying so much to fit in, not realizing that what I needed to do was introduce them to my African culture. Because so many people didn't know the beauty of Africa. They only saw what they only knew what they saw on TV. So I said, it's my duty now to introduce them about Africa. And immediately I started having confidence in being an African, in loving my culture, in loving the food we eat. Guess what? I started having friends from all over. Friends from here, from there. And all they want to do is come come to Africa, learn how to make, I don't know, my biryani or fufu, learn how to do. So I started seeing even Americans telling me, oh, the next time you go to Kenya, please bring me along. I didn't have to say nowadays. You know, those days it was difficult for me. Sometimes they say, oh, I'll tell the taxi driver, I say, can you please drop me at Connecticut? He said, hey, my sister, if you want to progress in America, it is not Connecticut. I say, what is it? Connecticut. I say, as far as I know, it's connect and cut. Put it together. Connecticut. That's what my English teacher used to tell me. Eh? So I'm telling you, I had to realize that I had to love my culture. I had to embrace it. I had to make sure that they learned it and enjoyed it. So once upon a time, of course, one of these days, I said, oh, I met some of my African brothers. Like now we meet now. I know you guys are more Pan-African. They are not like some of the brothers out there. So I met some of one person and I said, hey, my brother, you look like you're from Africa. Because those days when you are new, you want to assimilate and be with your people. Hey! He looked at me and he told me, hey, je suis de Paris. I said, hey! As far as I know, you look just like an African. Eh? Hey! So I said, you know, brothers and sisters, you also have to love yourself. You have to encourage. Now that you are so much enlightened about Africa and the work that we need you to do, I would like for you to take this message outside, and so that we can have a forum where all our seats are covered. Everyone is seated here, because you know what? It's not about us. It's about our future. It's about the people who come after us. Our children, our children's children, to love ourselves, to uplift Africa. Because if we ourselves don't help Africa, no one else will. And this poem I want to dedicate is called Don't Make Me Change. As I speak, rhymes flow into my mind, and as I blaze the stage, I hope you will relate and comprehend my linguistic phrases. As I speak your dialectic phrases and use my accentual tongue to bless thee with words of wisdom. I am a victim of discrimination. No, not because I'm black, and sure enough I ain't white, but because I am an immigrant, an alien, a foreigner. See, I speak the same words, comprehend the same phrases, but just because my tongue rolls in a different way, that don't mean I'm down. And see, yes, comprende English. Because I probably speak and know more English than you. See, I'm tired of being labeled, people talking to me like I'm down, having some disability of some sort. Disability ain't nobody's choosing. But sister, brother, I am fine. 100% sane. Matter of fact, much better than you in many ways than one. I mean, if you cannot say my name right, moi la go, then you have no right to tell me to say water if I know it as water. I mean, what is the meaning of this conversation? Eh? And what is the purpose of communication? To drink water or to say water? So, honey child, please, if you have not walked in my shoes, you have no say in my world. And don't you dare command me to walk in your shoes, because I love the smell of my feet, the feel of my shoes, and the history of my life. I mean, have you ever seen a monkey before? I mean, in real life. Do you know what it does? How it jumps? Have you had the pleasure of walking bare feet? Feeling the sand, tickling your toes? Have you been cramped up in a bus? Loaded with people, each talking their own languages, but their faces looking so similar? Have you had the pleasure of dancing to the rhythm of the drums and the music of the ululation? Making you feel so exhilarated? See, you cannot understand. Just like I do not understand the Halloween madness, the calling before coming to visit, the biggest sale of the year, and the time clock moving forward and backward. My ways are not your ways, and your ways cannot be mine. So please don't try to change me, because I have no pleasure in asking you to change. For I love you anyway, whether Hispanic, African, American, Indian, Asian, we are all God's children. So why can't we relate, love our difference, exterminate our ignorance that is killing us, and bring flavor into this world. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. Now we're going to move to the question and answer session. There will be one question taken at a time, and we would like you to be very brief in asking your question. Because we are time limited, we're going to pass the list. Everybody or people who are willing to ask a question can write their name on it, and then we'll call them up when their time arrives. But let's do this. We will have one person starting. If those who wanted to ask a question, if they can raise their hand, and somebody at the back will come and actually take their name and also let them know. Here she is. She's coming. She's coming with the microphone. Okay.
Maybe not. Hold on. Sorry.
Okay.
Technical difficulties. You know, they always happen.
Yes, so it was really a wonderful presentation coming from both our speakers. And let's get to the substance when we ask our question, because we want this to be very, very, very rich. And let's start with the first question. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Joe Akaria. I'm from Kenya. This question is to both panelists. In your presentations, none of you made any reference to the African Union. And I wanted to know whether your ideas of reforming the Franc CFA zone is an idea that has been spoken about in the African Union.
Mr. Yokara, first of all, thank you very much. That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question because all what we have described, is part of the agenda of the reforms of the African Union. You know that the African Union was born out of the ashes of the previous African Union organization, and there are two main treaties that are really the backbone of the African Union. It's the Lagos Treaty in the mid-70s and the Abuja Treaty, in the 80s. Those treaties recommend in the long term to have a single currency for the whole Africa region. So based on that, because we already have 14 countries with about the same currency, although it's not totally the same. We have 14 currency with the single 14 countries with a single currency, and 42 countries or so. Each of them have their own currency. Ideally, the dream is that all those currencies will merge in the long term to have a single currency, in the spirit of the African Union, in the spirit of the Abuja Treaty, in the spirit of the Lagos Plan of Action that is moving towards a single currency. But I need to be very frank with you. I've been involved, advising governments for many years, and I've been involved in those reforms. It's not easy. It's still, a dream. It's still a dream, the dream of our fathers to unite Africa completely. But because of vested interests, because of the lack of political commitment, the countries are not moving towards that goal. Even what we call today the CFA zone is not united. I just described that to you. It's not united because you have the West, you have the Central, and goods don't move easily from one place to another one. The currency used in Central Africa cannot be used in West Africa. That's since August 1994. Which is not what the African Union want. The African Union want to merge all that, but that is still a dream. It's still an objective, but moving towards it, is not going to be very, very easy. You know, we may not achieve it in our lifetime, but one day that will happen. But that will not become, you know, very easily. Thank you.
All right. Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I define myself as a young progressive economist. I do believe that the African Union is doing what it's supposed to do, because the African people put their dream, put their aim, their objective in that union in order to become free. But there are too much politics, game plan around these leaders, because when things got to be changed, it's got to start from leaders. But the leaders that we have in that African organization, they are not paying and they are not doing what the African people want them to do. Right now, that's why because my colleague was saying that most of those CFA zone countries are not ready. Well, as far as we are concerned from Côte d'Ivoire, we are ready, because we have the mind to take and to control our economies. We are the people that can work in those banks, and we have the resources. We don't want to postpone what can be done today. Right now, in the ECOWAS zone, they are trying to have one currency for all the 16 countries member of the ECOWAS. I was at the first year of the university in Abidjan, and they start talking about it. But they couldn't make it. So the situation is that the African Union is not doing great, because the hope that we put in that organization are not defending the interests of the African people.
Greetings, panelists. First of all, I'm Ross Yahuda Edwards, representing the Marcus Mosiah Garvey Human Rights Foundation, as well as the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, known as the UNIACL, founded in 1914 in Jamaica and 1918 in New York. I want to thank the presenters and the organizers for hosting us today and giving us a better idea of what the history is. And this is in parentheses, or you say FYI, the same 65%, I heard it was 70. I have a confirmation that it's 65 at least with the CFA countries, but it's the same thing with Haiti. The only difference was it was happening since the days of Napoleon. So if you beat some people up and you're stranded on an island, you have no choice but to negotiate a 70% deal. So if you want to have an idea of what could happen to the CFA countries west and is it central, look at Haiti. So as Dr. Solomon said, if we need to come together in a more specific way. And a lot of people don't really know why Haiti is why it is, and that's why. There ain't nothing wrong with Haiti at all. Alright? And they were the first republic in the West, by the way. Close parentheses. I want to ask the panelists, now, you gave some solutions, but a lot of it seems to hinge on where the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. So it seems as though there's a need for political will, and there's a need for human resource or people will, the population, which in the case of political will, well, we know that people can move the population, and the price of freedom is death. Africa must be free, but how many of us are willing to die for it? This is a Pan-African forum, but how many Pan-Africans are really what Baba Lumumba calls class 4, level 4 Pan-Africans, the ones who are willing to die for it. If you ain't willing to die for it, then what you living for? We can't get out of life alive anyway, so we might as well find something to live to die for. As economists, you can point out the solutions, but would you agree with us that it takes political will and the will of the people? And if that is in fact the case, why would something perpetuate for 52 years? And is it that we need some sort of global referendum, or maybe in the case of the African Union, an African Union referendum, which really, that is where it begins. And until we consolidate and agitate and have a common point, then I don't think that we're going to progress, but I know we will. Can you speak to that?
Mr. Edward, thank you, for your comment and question. It's a very good question. I don't know. You said it all. You said that, where there is a will, there is a way. That is what is missing in that part of the world. Where there is a will, there is a way. The problem is that, because of the conflicting interests of various interest groups, in that part of the world, because of the lack of nationalism in that part of the world, for many leaders over there, they have, their families have, their landing places are in other places, are in Paris or in some other places, because of the lack of nationalism, similar to what brought, the Sékou Touré in 1958 to get out of the French franc, or that, brought people like Modibo Keïta in Mali, in the early 60s to get out of the French franc. We don't have that nationalism. And the interest group, are diverging on what should be done. That explains to a large extent, why there is no political will, in that part of the world. Let me just tell you that the dream of Africa is to become completely united. That remains the motto. But because that cannot be done overnight, the leaders, our forefathers, who recognize that that should be the dream, they recognize in the meantime that that cannot be done overnight. So what they are recommending is the integration by circles. For example, they want, everything to start in West Africa, to unite West Africa. They want, East Africa to be united. They want, Central Africa to be united. They want Southern Africa, to be united before merging at the whole entire continental level. In West Africa, what does that mean? It means that, the French-speaking countries got to unite their currency at some point, with English-speaking countries. You have an entire organization, I think they are based in Ghana or something like that, working precisely on that, to have a single central bank, to have a single currency. But it's not very easy to move forward because of vested interests. People, why? Because when you don't control the currency, you have very little margin, of the management of your economic system. And countries, people who are in power now, they don't want to lose their power and authority just because the central bank is independent. It's not easy, for Nigeria to just give up, because of the unity, African Union, to just give up the power that they have. It's the same thing for many other countries. They don't want to give up that power. It's easier in French-speaking countries because they have given up that power for many years. So giving up that, the power to manage the monetary system is easier in French-speaking countries than in English-speaking countries, just because it's not easy. So that group has been working on for many years, and progress, are very slow. They keep postponing the deadline. At some point, I don't remember the precise timing, they wanted, to have that, by 2000, to have a single currency. But today they're still working on it. I know many of the people who are working on that. They're still working on it. So you are completely right. Where there is political will, there is a way. And that is lacking to some extent. And we also have to recognize that, where there is political will, there are costs associated, with action. If you move without assessing, the benefit and cost, before moving, you need to be able to mitigate the cost, of the motion. Thank you.
Yes. The problem to have a single currency in Africa, it's not really easy, but at the same time it's feasible. Because when you see the French-speaking countries, they are the problems in Africa. They are the one who does not allow to realize this project. Even the ECOWAS countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, those English-speaking countries, they have already their own currency. They have already their own central bank. So, giving up that authority to have a common currency in West Africa before we can talk about all African continent currencies, they are ready for that. But the problem is the French-speaking country, the country that use the French CFA, because they're the one who manipulate all these systems. When they go to the meeting in Abuja, where there is the ECOWAS headquarters, the French people are in that meeting. We are talking about African people to have their own currency. Why a French guy should be in that meeting? That's the question. Because there are a huge interest in that region that they play the game within ourselves. But we should begin somewhere. And the revival of nationalism is on the path in Ivory Coast. Because they know that if Ivory Coast leave that monetary union, create their own currency, they have their own bank, the rest of those African countries, French-speaking countries like Mali, Guinea, Senegal, other countries, will follow the path of Côte d'Ivoire. That's why they start the whole project. So the French are the problem. The English-speaking countries, they're ready for that, but we, the people coming from the French-speaking side, we are still, under that stressful control of the French colonialism that we have.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Bowe. I'm representing the Association of Cameroonians at the World Bank and the IMF. And I'm delighted to be at this conference. I'm amazed by how much work the panelists did, and I thank them for a wonderful presentation, both of you. And I thank the organizers for inviting everyone for doing this on behalf of our continent. I think we need it really very much. I'll just begin by just putting a footnote to something that Dr. Salmon said, and I think he looked at me and some colleagues about what the right figure was for support to Africa versus when he talked about 40 billion coming from those of us in the diaspora and how much was going from the World Bank. As a matter of fact, last year was 7 billion. So it's way, way, way below what the diaspora is able to do.
7 billion?
It was 7 billion last year. The highest amount has been 13 billion, which was when when there was a big loan to South Africa for ESCOM, $3.4 billion loan 2 years ago. So there's never been anything above 13 billion. And over a 5-year period, it is 50 billion split amongst the 39 countries, which are low-income countries that borrow from IDA at the World Bank. That said, I'd just like to ask both of you 3 questions that bother me. One, do we really know where we are going when we talk about a united Africa? We have seen a united Europe with the euro, and we've seen it collapse. You talked about it cracking. we've seen Britain stay away from the euro and say, I'm not touching it, not with a 9-foot spoon. There is something in that unity, without fiscal policy unity, that makes it completely, perhaps, doomed. But would we end up like Europe, facing a recession, double-digit recession, and in trouble? Secondly, do we really need a common currency when any Tom, Dick, and Harry can run an advert on TV and say, what's in your wallet? I mean, we know that Visa, MasterCard, American Express are already the currency of the world. Will we catch up with the currency of the world if we continue to stick to paper currency? Are we not better off taking a shortcut to electronic money and plastic money that then unites the continent about something? What about an African Visa card, MasterCard, some card that kind of shortcuts this whole thing and builds on technology and takes the continent where it really is supposed to be going? And my last question seems to be that what we are talking about, if we don't have monetary independence, do we have independence of any kind at all? And can we look to those people at the African Union to provide independence, given that they are really the governors of the colonialists? Is it time for a new revolution across the continent to claim independence?
I'm sorry, just in the interest of time, if we could have, sorry panelists, just keep it a little brief because we have at least 5 more questions that we have. We want to make sure that we can honor the questions and allow you to speak as well.
Thank you very much, Chairman Herbert from the World Bank, for shedding some light on some of the figures. It was not clear, my mind was rushing, for this presentation. It was not clear in my mind where 50 was coming from. I did not know that it was an aggregate. And this makes us even more comfortable with what we are saying. If, on a single year basis, Africans can send 40 billion, that means that, they are sending 4 or 5 times, what the World Bank is lending. It's enough to make anything happen, in that part of the world. That means that, compare, to the World Bank, what the diaspora, the $100, the $200 that you send here and there, this is tremendous amount of money that if put together and manipulated and managed properly can bring about tremendous transformation in our countries. And that maybe this is a subject that we need to also think some more about it and see what to do about it. The 3 questions that you asked, President Bo, I'm not sure that I will be able to answer those questions here. Those are very pertinent, the information. The first question is, do we know where we are going? Let me just give you very quickly the background, the rationale of the single union, single monetary money, currency in Africa. The Lagos Action Plan and the Abuja were, put together with the leadership of Nigeria in the 70s and in the 80s. And it was at the time when Europe was still building. Europe is not what we are today. The dream, of Europe was one day to be like the U.S. They were saying that, the Rome Treaty was signed in 1957, and after the signing in 1957 was after the war. The U.S. was the main leader. There was no comparison between Europe and the U.S. And the dream of Europe was to be as the U.S. one of these days. That's why they started putting together their union. They succeeded to a large extent. It was the Europe of 6, the Europe of 9, the Europe of 12, the Europe of 26. They were putting together, and it was working. The problem is that it collapsed. It collapsed, since a few years ago. It collapsed, so they see that dream. They wanted to be like the U.S., a single currency, from Florida to wherever you can make it a single place. So that was the dream, to have a single country, Europe. And African, when they were building their charts, their treaties, they did the same thing. They said that, okay, the ideal world, the last stop, as some people say, is the U.S. That's the top of the top. Europeans are moving towards that. we too, Africans, we have to move towards the same direction. What did the US do? Single currency, single flag, single everything, single T-shirt. I see United States, of Africa, and so on and so forth. And that's what, the Europeans were doing. The Europeans were doing, forget it. We want to be like the US. Single currency, no borders. People should move like in the US. Free movement of people. That was the dream. So the treaties, of Abuja, the Treaty of Lagos were modeled on that scale. We need to move towards, a single union, a single space, and so on and so forth. But it collapsed, we cannot say that it collapsed because, it's shaking, it's breaking apart since a couple of years ago. Nobody knows if it's going to hold. It's very difficult. It's not going to hold, not because it's not good. I don't think so. It's not going to hold because of Germans are stubborn. Germans don't want to do what the US does. The US, they have, QE1, QE2, QE3, whatever, you can imagine. But given, the background of Germans in terms of inflation and so on and so forth, they don't want to deal with that. It's dogmatic. They don't even want to discuss about that. They said they don't want it. If they had that solution in Europe, we will not be where we are today in Europe. But if things don't work, the Eurozone will collapse. Greece is shaking, Spain is shaking, Italy is shaking, and luckily, they're putting some money together because, last week again, they increased, the fund, to the IMF, from 250, to 400 billion. So they have some money. They might be able, to hold it together, but it's very tough. So I just want to say that, was this design in Africa was modeled on that scale. The question, do we need a common currency? I think, that's the same spirit. Do we need a common currency? Personally, as economist, I would upset many people if I say that, I'm not sure, because that's the attitude, of the UK. The UK said, well, that single currency business, we don't want to be part of it. We want to be able, to do whatever we want to do. The CFI countries don't have that room to maneuver. So we need at some point, to balance, the economic interest and the political ambition. If the US is the dream, we need to do what the US did, to move, towards the single currency. And that's the position of the African Union, to say that we know that there are problems with that. But let's start putting things together. At some point, we are going to unify, the fiscal policy. We are going to unify the monetary policy. We are going to move forward. That's what they are doing. But again, it's not easy to do that. It's going to take a lot of time. I've seen in many meetings, with many countries, many delegations. They say, well, that's true, but we don't know if we are going to see that in our lifetime. So the dream is still there. The dream is rooted in the experience of the US and in the experience of the EU. And we need, to manage that dream, to keep, the dream of our forefathers. Thank you.
Well, to answer your first question, which is, do you know where we are going? Well, as a young African, and I do believe that most of the young Africans know where they are going. What they want is a free Africa, an independent Africa. Africa that can share the resources with its own children. So we know where we're going. The African Union is a disappointment. Why is it a disappointment? Because countries don't elect the right leaders to sit in those instances. Because most of those leaders are not elected properly. So how somebody that is not elected properly can defend the will of the people? No, it will not. That's why it's taking time. But we're going to push them to have each country should bring somebody that they really want, somebody that is elected. So once it's elected, we're going to implement the Charter of the African Union in order to have a unique currency in the whole continent. Because those countries, they are doing good. Because look, they are not even the budget. It's not, we don't experience a high deficit budget. because the World Bank and the IMF has put those countries in a situation that they have to implement a reform of the fiscal policy, and they're doing it in a great way. The only problem we have that we don't have the right leaders in those instances. Do we need a union? Yes, we don't need a common currency in Africa. Why we need a common currency? Look, Africa is the largest, healthier economy, wealth economy that we have. Only our research can make us so powerful, because money is linked with wealth, and we have those wealth in Africa. So we can become the superpower. We can buy brain even from China, from America. That's why they don't want that. It's simple. They don't want it, that we have our own currency, because we will not trade anymore with them. Because look, countries like Botswana, Namibia, those countries, they're tiny, small countries, but they are doing fine. Because the wealth is linked with their resources. Okay? The take of the people, prosperity, is growing in those parts of the country. So we do need a unified currency in Africa in order to be respected. Because if we have the unified currency in Africa, we will deal on the same level with the United States, with the European Union. They will not impose anybody in our countries. The third, are we independent? I said, no, we are not. We are not independent, but we can become independent. Every African should really know that we are in a serious condition right now. It's time to wake up. It's time to give up our own interests and to think about the prosperity of our people. And elections is a serious issue in Africa at this time. Look at all those elections in Africa. They are tainted, they impose people to share, because they want to defend their own interests. So we are not independent, and the struggle is ahead. We're going to fight that struggle, and we're going to win.
Thank you, brother. Okay, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but we can only take 3 questions because we have to be out of here by about 7. So apologize, but I'm going to have to take you off the mic, all right? So we're going to have 3 questions, and let me see who had their hand up. This brother. Wow, there's like 1 million people. So we're not going to be able to take all these people. I do apologize in advance, but the people who had their hand up for a very long time, we're going to take. So we'll take 1, 2, and the sister here. Does that work for everybody? And then we'll be here so we can chat with the presenters. I'm sorry, sister, but you got a little bit late on the list. All right.
Before you start, I just want to remind the speakers, if you can be precise, in your answers to the questions, and very short as well. Okay, go ahead, my brother.
All right. Thank you, brother. Peace and blessings to everyone. I really enjoyed being here tonight. I enjoyed this conference. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the speakers. My name is Harold Hunt. I'm from Washington, D.C. I have another name, Uhuru, which means freedom. And I was so immensely stricken by you when you had mentioned the word Africanized Africa, brother. And I kept telling myself, this is dealing with the modernization. I'm going to ask the question, sister. Okay. And that's the good part of my question, because it deals with socialization. When you had said Africanized Africa, and we have so many social engines now with Facebook and Twitter. So how much weight can we really play a part with the different Africanized Africa, as you had coined it? And how can we help incorporate that so we don't have to wait till next year? We can just keep it going and make it a win-win for everybody. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah was a great mentor in my life. Africa must unite. And we always mention the currency, but how can we have that true definition of Africanized Africa? Thank you.
Thank you, brother, for that short question. Yes, brother.
My name is Laurent. I'm very, very happy for Pan-African Forum organization, and also all those brothers. My question, maybe I have one question on one proposition.
Only questions, but
okay.
I'm so sorry.
All right. Right now, this world is controlled by money. Everything we are talking is money. Okay, this powerful country who control the Africa now for money, they all have a problem. Because that's why they're collaborating for everything is show me or show everybody on the world. Okay, my problem is what? This country have a powerful army, powerful right now who control Africa. They have a media powerful who manipulate all the information from Africa. Do we have this kind of power to control or pass around this army to get our real unity? Because the powerful and all this control, all this country have the army still there. In Ivory Coast, they have an army base of France. Djibouti, army of base. Chad, army of base. Senegal, army of base for France. Do we have this kind of power to control without to control these people? Because they have the power by army. We go to election and we vote our own leader. They turn around by the army power to take him out and who they want. So I don't know who you can have this kind of thing. Proposition for the people how we can control this army and get power.
Thank you, brother. I hope you all are getting the questions. Okay, last question. Here you go, Seth.
Considering that you're trying to wean off of the banking system as it is, my name is Laura Wubu. Is it possible that a study group can discuss investments in water rights, because France relies on maybe 90% nuclear energy, and their waste products will have to be disposed of shortly, because just as Fukushima and other places, there's been deception in what is going on, and they love to just drop the waste in a country that can't, respond to their muscles. And so, because the water rights are extremely important, is there a study that will initiate or continue standing up for Africans having water rights? Because if you don't have water, you won't have food, you won't have fish, you won't have traveling. And we know there was a recent movie out called The Stinking Ship, I think it was. And that was Côte d'Ivoire, and that was well documented. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. So you all have the three questions. One is about water rights, one is about the army, and the last question was about Africanizing Africa. Go ahead, panelists.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to be very short. With regard, to the Africanizing Africa, that I'm suggesting, which might be shocking for some people, that's the way to go. If you look at many things, Africa does not belong to Africa. From many, various reasons, Africa does not belong to Africa. We got to get back our continent. How do we get back our continent? I'm not too sure that, is by having an army. China, to some extent, is on the verge to controlling the world. It's not with the army. It's with knowledge. Knowledge, strategy, vision, and work. Very hard work. It's not, by army. The U.S. is the strongest, military power. But China is controlling, most of the world at this moment in various ways. It's because of knowledge, capacity, vision, hard work, and strategy. That's what we have. We need, to get back our continent. We need, the brain of people who are able, to chart a vision, and to move forward. Africanizing Africa, that's the way to go. How do we go about it? Money is important. I don't think that, absolutely. The army is also important. We need to find, the sequence. When you have the money, the army can come later. When you have the money, as China did, we need, to copy. The model of China, seems to be the most, the obvious model. The study group, absolutely, we need study group. We need the brain. We need people. We need our people who are paid day in, day out, 9 to 5, to think about what to do. You cannot, move without thinking. We need to think. We don't have that at this moment. All, our thinking is done by other people. We need to start thinking. We need to have a vision, in order, to chart the future for ourselves and to chart the future, for our children. We need a vision. Thank you.
Well, to Africanize Africa, that's the dream of all the African people. To have this to be done, Africa needs a safe environment. And they need democracy, and they need the rule of law. Because look, all this African brain, you and me and the rest of the people in this room, they are all skillful. We have the capability to run our own country. But we cannot go back because the environment is not safe. That's why Africa needs to be united in order to have one government. And this will stop all the nonsense that is going on. That's the first question. Second question, the army. Well, we don't need army. We know that the army is there, but at the same time, the army cannot kill all the African people. So, so we got to stand up, we got to speak out. That's the only thing we can do. We got to speak out, like in this conference, like what we're doing. And at the same time, we need to be very progressive in our thinking, in our way of doing things. And the third question regarding the water right, well, you see, if we become only one country, one continent, no any European country will just come to violate the water right. Because this has happened in Ivory Coast. They went there, they dumped all those toxic things because the people who were in charge of that department was somebody corrupted. So this happened. You see, so we need a strong leadership. We need people that love their country, and we urge the brain, to speak out. And at the same time, we got to fight for freedom, democracy, and rule of law in this country. In that way, we African people, we can go back to serve our country.
So I want to thank very much the speakers. If they have last remarks to make, just 1-2 minute maximum, we will welcome them. Dr. Solomon Sameh, do you have any more last remark for the conference?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm not going to we have had the opportunity to discuss. I just wanted, to sincerely thank Dr. Nyaka and the whole team, for putting this together. This is the beginning of a journey. I know that it's not easy, but we need, to start putting in place the pieces of the puzzle to really, chart a future for ourselves. And we are on the right track, and we are going to participate, in any way we can. We are part of the continent. We don't want to be just watchers, standing by watching. We want to be actors in what will happen in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up at this great meeting we had. And I want to particularly thank Dr. Nyaka when I was asked to come to speak on this panel. I was very pleased. Well, you know what? The fight is open, and we should not just back up. It's time for us to organize some study group in order to put our thinking in a piece of paper so that we can lobby. You guys live in Washington, D.C., where the brain is. So, I live in Kansas City, which is a small, tiny place, All right, so, I'm very happy to be here. I'm going back tomorrow morning early. And Dr. Nyaka, let me know if there's any further things that I will just come back, okay? And I just want to acknowledge Alain Toussaint.
I was going to do that.
Oh, okay. So, please.
Don't make any mistake.
All right. So, thank you very much. Okay. I love you guys.
So let's thank one more time our speakers. Thank you very much. Now, let me introduce Wuli Eji. Okay, from a Bridge of Creativity newsletter.
It's a great pleasure for me to be here tonight, to be at this special event. Before I start, let me pretty much thank you for the great work this organization is doing. I'm here tonight pretty much to present my vision for Africa through some projects we are pretty much doing right now in Togo, and that we hope to extend to the continent of Africa. So the mission of our organization, Bridge of Creativity, is to empower creativity first and promote innovation in Africa through a basic educational program. So we really believe that children are the future of tomorrow. We often say they are the future, but we have to give them the chance to become the future of tomorrow world. And as the speaker said today, our country don't elect the right leader. In order for us to elect the right leader, we believe we have to make them today for them to be able to be a good leader tomorrow. So through our project, myself, I'm an electrical engineer, so we mentor those young children looking at them through some engineering way, basically, because we believe we need a lot of innovation in Africa. And for community to change, we need them to be able to solve their own problem, as compared to importing goods and resources and goods and material to this community. We've been to some community, and speaking of non-profit organizations in general, there's a woman that said they are tired of people coming in their community, promise their things, raise their hopes, and then leave them. They want us to teach them how to do things, so when they wake up the following day, they can do it on themselves. So overall, this is the project Bridge of Creativity is doing. We are mentoring young children from the very beginning, maturing their creativity, introducing them to problems in their community. So while growing up, they can see this problem and think about how they can solve them. We had a competition in Togo last December, which was pretty much asking those kids to build a small car. While growing up myself, we used to do some small objects, but by asking them to build it, we want them to look at it on a different way. Look at it through the knowledge they are learning in the classroom, to apply it to a small car and see how they can think about it differently. So we have some video on our website. If you guys have some time, you can stop by and see some of the video. So the children were able to make some very nice design, build it, and were able to present it to a panel. So doing that, they were able to express their leadership, express their personality, express what they learn, and they are more motivated to learn in school. So tomorrow they can be useful for the society. So yeah, my website, our website, because I don't like to call it my project, I believe is a community project, and it's called bridgeofcreativity.org. www.bridgeofcreativity.org. So this is a project we cannot do ourselves. We need the whole support of the whole community, so we can pretty much we can finish our pilot program in Togo and move into other countries in Africa. So I'll give you the card of the organization. If anybody is interested, you can go on the website, look at it, and potentially join us. Thank you for your time.
Hi
everybody. I would like to thank my colleague and my friend who worked together in Bridge of Creativity. And we also like to thank the panelists as well as the organizers of this event who gave us this opportunity to present in our project and our organization. Well, as it was presented earlier on by the different panelists, in order to have a strong Africa tomorrow, we need to build capacity. And that capacity building takes a lot of time. We have a lot of potentials on the continent. We have brilliant people. We have talented youth, but the lack of materials in order to achieve things. There's no way Africa is going to get developed if we don't build our own stuff, if we don't produce for ourselves, if we keep importing everything, importing our food, importing our cars, our clothes, and importing everything. So industrial development is essential for sustainable development, and we want to help youth today in order to be able for them to be able tomorrow to produce for us, in order to strengthen the industrial field, and that is what we're going to train youth in the scientific department. Innovation and technology is big. China has proved it. Because they are powerful in technology and innovation today, they are leading the world. And in order for Africa to lead the world tomorrow, we have to have a lot of scientists, and not just have scientists who work for the NASA and international institutions, but scientists who work on the ground in order to promote different tools that will help the country come out of poverty. There are a lot of things that we can do on the continent, and we have to cut the dependency on other countries. We have to be able to do things for ourselves. And we want the children of today to have that way of thinking that they can solve the problems in their community at the national scale, at the local scale. And that is what Bridge of Creativity is doing. We want you guys to support us, and we thank you because we believe that you will be able to support us. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we're going to have our very brief closing by Brother Nyaka, who's going to bring everything together today, tell you what we're doing in the next few months, and obviously we're going to ask for your participation in the next few months. So, Brother Nyaka.
Thank you, my sister. Okay, thank you very much. Usually when I speak at the end, it is because I want to give a series of things to a series of individuals and people. And the first people, I would like us to, for whom I would like us to whom we should give it a round of applause are Dr. Nash Poku, who came all the way from Kansas City, and Dr. Solomon Semen, who came from Mauritius. There are two brothers here. I am not going to mention their names. They are the one who gave me the opportunity to meet with Dr. Solomon, and we've been thinking about putting this conference together for many years. My friend and brother Eugene, since 2007. So we were looking for many people to come and speak, and Dr. Semen was the first to accept to come and speak, and then we found Dr. Nash Poku. So I'm really pleased, to have them here, and thanks to them for the first time, or maybe for one of the first time, you will be able to see on YouTube a debate on the CFA zone in English. Because when we were preparing this conference, we went there, we can see snippets of conversation about the CFA zone, but in French. But this is, I think, one of the few conversations on the CFA zone in English. So we're going to put that on YouTube and on our website, so that people who could not come here, they can learn from what our speakers have spoken this evening. So thank you again, Dr. Nash Poku. Thank you, Dr. Solomon. Yes, I've heard a few people mentioning my name. I'm not doing this by myself. I have friends. So we don't have a huge group. I'm not going to mention by names today. But we have a small group of people who are serious, and we're trying to do the right thing. And today we had the opportunity to see George Duncan and Dr. Njiba Freywot. The both of them, Njiba was the conference manager, George was the moderator, and they did a great job. I would like us to give them also a round of applause. We're here this evening, and I'm a student of Pan-Africanism. I studied with Dr. Njiba at Howard University. The theoretical concepts we've been using and we try to implement on the practical level were given to us by some of our teachers. And since 2007, today we have the privilege to have one of our professors in the room, Dr. Suleiman Nyanga, who is over there in the corner. And he believed in me, he believed in us, and he gave us the theoretical foundation of what we try to do. And he told me that he was going to come today. For a second, I did not believe until I saw him in the hallway. So, and then he stayed till the end of the conference. Thank you, Dr. Nyang. When we started this conference, I met another man, Dr. Dwin Taylor, and he was trying to help us, strategize and improve our platform. And he suggested that we bring organizations to come and discuss so that we can create a kind of Pan-African reunion. And we spoke about that many months ago. And today we really tested his suggestion. And I think that we might have enjoyed the presentation of several leaders of several organizations. So thanks, Dr. Dwin Taylor, who is over there. Dr. Nashpoku was going to talk about somebody. His name is Alain Toussaint. He's a great communicator, one of the best on the face of earth. He was the communication advisor of the former president of the Ivory Coast. And he's based in France. Now he's the president of Côte d'Ivoire Coalition. So he's in town. He's here, Alain Toussaint. I think he's here with one of his second in command, Dr. Bali Topla, a friend of us. I would like to thank you, all of you, and even Don Alvarez, okay, my student, called me, sent me a message this morning that she wants to be here. Thank you, all of you. This is what we want to do. We want Africans and people of African descent to understand that it is in synergy, in unity, that we can try to do things. I wish, we had more than 100 people in the room, but it was a nice crowd. It could be better. We're going to adjust. We will do what we have to do, and we will continue until people understand that we are not wasting our time by organizing a platform. By organizing a platform, to engage the African diaspora to discuss about our own issues. I've been living here in DC for 12 years. I haven't seen a serious debate about the CFA zone, maybe outside, the World Bank or the IMF. So we're trying, and I think that if Dr. Solomon may allow us, we may even have another debate about the CFA zone, maybe next year, so that we can really give the opportunity to people to understand what we're trying to do. So thank you very much. And on June the 23rd, we're going to have our next conference about imperialism and Pan-Africanism. The former president of Côte d'Ivoire, Laurent Gbagbo, is going to be tried on June 18th. And we're going to take the opportunity to engage the debate about Pan-Africanism, imperialism, because the crisis in Ivory Coast has divided not only the country, but the African community and the Pan-African community. So people have different positions about the crisis. So we want to have a serious conversation about that on June the 23rd. So we invite you. It's going to be here in this room. We hope you will come and that you will go to bring people. And then, this is what we want to do. And I thank you very much for, staying till the end and till 7. And God bless you. And God redeem Africa. Thank you.
Merci. Bonjour. Ça va? D'accord.